Good afternoon, everybody. It is Tuesday. It is 3 p.m., and that means it's Zoomification conversation time. Thank you all for coming to play with us. If you are watching us live, you know the drill. Make sure you let us know you're out there watching and put your comments into the chat because we really want to be able to know what you're thinking and what you feel about what's being said. We really love having comments from you. We love knowing you're out there. Today is going to be an amazing conversation. Look, it's a new year. We talked about habit forming and habit building and how to make everything work last week. But how do you know what habits to start with? How do you know what matters? And that question led me to find this amazing woman who focuses on your finances, but what she talks about and what she teaches really resonates throughout everything that you're going to do in your life because it's about visualizing what matters. It's about visualizing the world that you want to step into and making that manifest in your life. And that's what we're going to talk about today, which is really exciting. So I'm going to let you stop listening to me. And I'm going to invite into the conversation the amazing Ellen Rogin. Hi, Ellen.
Hey, Jane. Nice to be here. Good to be here with you all.
Thanks for coming to play with us. And as I said, we already have comments in the chat. I'm going to come out and look at them. But if you're watching us live, let us know you're out there. If you're watching us on the replay, do it too. We love the comments that come in from the replay too. So we just love everybody who's hanging out with us. Ellen, tell everybody who's watching a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, so I spent a big part of my professional career in really traditional worlds of being a CPA working in public accounting, hating it, by the way, and leaving and going to be a financial advisor, which I worked with for many, many years with people and left that business about 3 years ago. And one of the really interesting things for me that I realized during that time of working with people on their money is just so fascinating how people think about their finances and their business and everything in this money world. And I really became a student of understanding people's money personalities and what worked and what were limits for them. And so a lot of what I'm doing now is speaking to bigger groups and working with financial advisors to help them be more awesome and working with individuals to really identify what some of the limits are they have and breaking through those to have a more prosperity on purpose, to be more deliberate about it.
Prosperity on purpose. I love that. And that is the whole idea of your books. That's what you do. So you're an author, you're a speaker, you've done a little bit of everything. So while we launch, just tell people the names of your book.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Picture Your Prosperity right here. Happen to have one. Yeah. And you know what, we just came out with a new version about a year ago, an updated version. And when I went back and read the first version, this might sound like awful for someone to say about themselves, or maybe not, but I was like, this is really good. It's kind of funny, a personal finance book. And what I really love about that approach is we take kind of this holistic big picture look and then ground it in some practical things you can do. So it helps work with both sides of your brain.
I love it. Before we start talking, I got to let you know the people that are popping in. I think you know this name maybe. Mary's here. Hi, Mary. I'm so glad you're here.
Mary.
Debbie Mann is the most amazing human being. She's also a trauma therapist and just one of the best people that you will ever meet. Debbie, I'm so glad you're here. Justine Boone, treat me sweet cookies. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. You're going to love this conversation. And Lorraine Ackerman Montalbano will hold your hand and do the most amazing things for you to sell you your house or to sell your house for you. I don't know which, but if you don't know Lorraine, you should. So we have amazing people watching us. I know there's more people out there. So you guys can throw your name in the ring and let us know there. We're loving it. Ladies, as you listen, if you have questions, let us know. Comments. We'd love to hear from you. But the very first thing I have to ask you, Ellen, is why visualization? Why do you think it's so important?
So I know that it's hard to move ahead if you don't really know where you're going, right? And not all of us, but most or many of us are really visual thinkers. And I really love this idea. I'm hearkening back to when I was a little girl and used to do a lot of pretending and imagining and watching shows. This can date me a little bit, but like Bewitched and wanting to be Tabitha and having things happen magically.
If only I could wrinkle my nose.
Right. So that's why I was Tabitha, because I couldn't be Sam and do that. So yeah, and so it's been really fascinating. But besides like this curiosity or kind of this new agey, like, oh, picture what you want, there's actually a lot of brain research now that shows really how powerful this is. There was a book called Your Brain on Business by Dr. Shrili Pillay, and he talks about how just even imagining moving your arm, you fire the same part of your brain as when you're actually moving your arm. And there's all sorts of really interesting things that can happen through that mental rehearsal. Athletes do this all the time. But early in my career, I started doing it with business goals, and things would show up just much more easily. It's like practicing and rehearsing ahead of time for the things that you want to have happen.
I think Debbie would probably be right there with us, because I know that's one of the things that you work on. A lot of times you actually do the opposite to yourself, right? Like you visualize the worst things happening so you can prepare yourself for the worst. And then you're waiting for the worst to happen, because that's what you prepared for. So it makes so much sense to visualize the best.
For sure. For absolutely sure. And I just want to interject this because it's on my mind when you said that Debbie's a trauma therapist. And she probably has experienced this with some of her patients, but people have a lot of financial trauma too. I was talking to someone yesterday. I do intuitive money readings for people, and I was working with someone who I've known for quite a while, but hadn't done this kind of work with her. And she said, thinking about where she is in her current financial life, she feels a lot of grief. And I thought that was so interesting because I hadn't heard anybody articulate it like that before. I've heard fear or worry, but so it's so interesting how the world I've been in, or the filter is money, but as you said, it impacts every part of your life. But there's so many emotions that really come into people dealing with thinking about their business or their financial future.
Well, they've wrapped so much of their future on it, right? They've hung their hopes and dreams on it. And so it's that idea that if you have the money, you can make it happen. I'm going to say hi, Jackie. I love you. Jackie is an amazing interior designer and the best person to work with. And Rob Genovese is like the brand god. So he'll love that. But it's Unleashed My Beats brand, and he is amazing. We have great people watching this. Thank you guys for coming on board. So we know that like creating this world that's better for you in your brain gives you the wait a minute. I love this. Hold on. All right, Debbie, I'm going to say yours first. Thinking about how childhood finances affects current perceptions about money. That's true. What you see when you're a child.
Huge. And it's huge. Dr. Bruce Lipton, who's a cellular biologist, says that we develop our subconscious beliefs between conception and age 7, and that 95% of the time we're operating out of our subconscious. And when it comes to money, people think it's all about up here, right? Unless you kind of are a little bit more self-reflective. But like, if I just understood things better, if I just had a better plan, if I was a better saver, if I was a better budgeter. But all these beliefs are really ingrained in us. And it's not necessarily what our parents said to us. It could be, but it also could be what you saw and heard growing up around money. Like in my family, we were lucky enough, or this was the situation we were in, that dad went off to work and mom stayed home with us, at least most of our young adult lives, or young, when we were little kids. And what ended up happening for me, I was in my 20s and started my own financial advisory firm at a pretty young age and started to look at my own money beliefs. And like what Debbie said, that I realized I was hearkening back to messages I got from my mom. And I realized I was operating out of the belief that it was my husband's job to make money, because that's what I saw in my family. And kind of further, I probably couldn't do it, which logically made no sense. Just because we believe something as it doesn't mean it's true at all. And sometimes just going, oh, that doesn't make sense. I had all these letters after my name and was starting my own business. And I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity at that age to realize this, because I really think if I hadn't, I wouldn't have had as successful as a career as I've had if I was just like, oh, that's Stephen's job and I probably can't do it. So 100%, Debbie, that these beliefs, and it's like I said, it's not even what you hear. Like we have 2 kids who are young adults now, and I was doing a program on kids and money a few years ago, and I said to our son Benji, like, what do you remember me teaching you about money? Now, I was super deliberate, right? I was a financial advisor. He said, you never taught me anything about money. I was like, really? Turns out both kids are very financially responsible. But even if you are telling your kids things, it doesn't mean they're hearing. They're really watching a lot more, or like soaking all this in.
And there's also the disconnect conversation too, right? Because I had what my parents, is kind of what you're saying. I had what my parents were saying to me, and then what I was watching my mom do, right? So my parents always came from scarcity. They had lots of kids, and my dad had multiple jobs, and they were always like looking for money. But I was the last child, and by the time I came along, my mom, every time she would complain about money, the next thing I knew, we had some new gadget. I always say she loved anything that didn't have to plug in. She thought that was the coolest thing ever. Like if it was rechargeable and she could and so as she was complaining, new stuff was coming in the door. And it was such a strange dichotomy of ideas. And all of that gets absorbed into your skin when you're a kid. And then you wrap your own reality around that. So it's so many layers of missed messages and strange concepts that you fed into yourself when you're a kid.
Yeah.
That kind of unwrapping that's very difficult.
Jean, would it be helpful for us to have a discussion about scarcity versus abundance? Because I think these terms are thrown around a lot and people don't always know what it means.
I think that would be great.
Yeah. So one of the things I've been playing with lately, which might be a little easier for people to grasp versus scarcity and abundance, although we can use those terms, is going with the current or against the current. So that visual. So against the current, when you're going against the current with your money or your finances or thinking about your future, that's when you come from worry, fear, it's aggressive competition. Like, okay, Jean, if you win, for me to win, you have to lose.
Someone has to be a loser.
Yeah. Or kind of jealousy, like something awesome happens in your business and I'm like, why isn't that me? Or judging you on it. They have this big fancy car. They're so materialistic instead of, right? So that's like against the current. Can you be successful and have financial rewards if you do that? Yeah, it's harder. You're going against the current. And so if we think that's kind of more scarcity, with the current is more abundance, prosperous thinking. And that's where this idea of there's more than enough to go around, giving like a standing ovation to people that you know and love when something good happens to them, that you're not resentful or jealous. You're like, yay for you. That's awesome. It's generosity, not over generous where you're going to end up hurting yourself where you have no money left at the end. And I know people who that's happened to, that they give. But, generous. In business, giving more, giving referrals, giving support, giving financial contributions. It's having a positive outlook on things. So that may be helpful. That are you going against the current, which feels restrictive, and fear-based, or with the current, which feels more expansive? Intuition lives in going with the current.
I love that. So does Rob. I agree with you, Rob. It's amazing. I'm holding on to that. Um, I think this is really a great spot to kind of jump in to the topic that we really wanted to talk about, which is, so we kind of talked about what it was like to see the world when you were a kid, how it like soaked into your skin, and now you're trying to figure it out. And you want to go with the current. You want to come from this space, but maybe it's not something you can see. So what is visualization, and how do you start visualizing what you want your world to be?
Yeah, well, the first part is knowing what you do desire to have happen. Like, what would one of the prompt questions I just love, and I got this from a guy who's since passed named Bill Levacy, and he gave me this prompt question once of like, wouldn't it be cool if ... How would you answer that? Wouldn't it be cool if clients just found me and they were the most ideal clients and we loved working together and they wanted me to get paid well and I wanted to serve them well? Or wouldn't it be cool if I got paid to fly to Australia and give a speaking engagement there and my husband could come, which, just a little asterisk, that had been on my wouldn't it be cool if for a long time, and my prosperity picture, which I think we'll talk about. And I just got hired in August. Yay! I'm going to Sydney.
Do you need a photographer to cover that for you? Anyway, go ahead.
I'll ask.
Okay. So that is a great place to start. If I could have anything, wouldn't it be cool if that was what happened? Because it does sort of lift the lid, right? It's not what can I have within the confines of where I am. It's, if I didn't have those confines, wouldn't it be awesome? Right.
Because then that starts to think about more of what's possible, because there's a lot of us going, yeah, but. And sometimes, that's fine. We have really practical or more specific things we want. But that, to your point of just opening up and using a different part of our brain. I mean, one of the things that used to drive me crazy as a financial advisor, I'm a certified financial planner, and they teach you like, these are the things you're supposed to ask about, like, when do you want to retire? And where do you want to send your kids to college? And it's so, those are important and goals for a lot of people, but they're not goals for everybody. What if you love your work and you never want to retire? And there's a different goal around that. So it's great to be able to just start to access a different part of your brain to start to really think of what would be cool. What would you like to have happen?
So now I've got this idea. Wouldn't it be cool if I could have a house on the beach and a house in the mountains? And wouldn't it be cool if I could have people who love what I do fly me around the world to take pictures for them, especially in Australia? Wouldn't it be cool if, so I've got that. Now what do I do next?
Yeah. So if it's something that's really, it's really looking around this whole thing. So asking more questions around it. So let's pick this, give me one of yours.
House on the beach.
House on the beach. Okay. So it's looking at why, asking a few questions. Why do you really want that? Why is that important to you?
I love the smell of salt water. It makes me feel really good.
Okay, good.
I feel free when I'm by the beach. And I always thought that it would be wonderful to be able to go to sleep with that smell in the air all the time.
Great. Another question I really love is, who else wins when you get this? Because when we're only focusing on us, that can be fine. But my experiences, and I think about it, a lot in the money world, but that generosity precedes prosperity. And with our goals, when we're focused on who else wins with these, they happen much more quickly. You get further faster. So if you had your house on the beach, who else does that benefit?
Well, seriously, every friend and every family member, because they will show up. Plus, the person who I bought it from, but, and I'm a photographer. I'm suddenly taking pictures on the beach for people. So there's a lot of connections there.
Yeah. So you feel how this is starting to feel a lot juicier. And where most people would go after I want a house on the beach is, how am I going to do that? How am I going to do that? I'm not set for retirement. I've got this big mortgage at my regular house. And that's not, at some point, you're going to do a plan around it. But if you go to the how way too quickly, it just limits you. Another, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so Rob said, speaking it needs to be concurrent with visualizing it. Yes. And I think that's kind of where we're headed. Right.
Yeah.
And Lorraine just wants us to know she wants a personal chef and a driver.
I used to want a personal chef too. And then our kids grew up and I don't need it anymore. Yeah. So the speaking it, absolutely, you want it concurrent with that. Let me just pause and talk about that for a second. Often people talk about, first of all, what they don't want. I don't want to be in the winters all the time in Chicago. I just don't want to be in the winter. I'm focusing on what I don't want, if that was the case. Or there's a but, like, or people say things like, well, I don't want to be in debt anymore. I don't want to worry about money. But like, so what do you want? Because your brain, focuses on what it hears over and over. And even the word wanting, the word want actually means lack. So when you're wanting too much, you get more wanting of it. So like, I really, really want to be somewhere warm in the winter. Well, okay, you're going to spend a lot of energy on the wanting part of it, not being somewhere warm in the winter, right? Yeah. And so one of the things when I'm giving workshops, I'll put up a slide that says abracadabra and we can ask the people listening now, do any of you know what abracadabra translates into? Mary may know this. Any of you know what abracadabra, like, yeah, magic. We know I want to be Samantha Stevens, but what does it actually mean? I'm looking in the chat. I'm seeing nothing yet. So I'm going to give the answer. It has Hebrew and Aramaic roots, and it translates into I will create as spoken.
Really?
I will create as spoken, appear. Yes, and it will appear, Rob, right? So it is this kind of magic thing. That's why I think I love all this so much, because there is this sense of mystery and magic around it. And then we try, I'll throw in things like, oh, there's brain science, and we talk about the reticular activating system and things. But there is this way that we can set things up to have things just flowing so much more easily for us. So yes, our speaking has to align with our visioning. Another question to ask is, who can support me in this process? Like, okay, so maybe, I'm sorry, I didn't write it down. One of the people here is a realtor. Oh, maybe I could learn. Yeah, Lorraine. So maybe she can help me find the perfect place. Maybe I need to talk to my financial advisor about how to plan for it. Maybe if I'm married, I want to make sure my partner is in the same boat, right? Yeah. So the what kind of support do we have with this? And then the last part is really taking action. So I think that visualizing is incredibly important, but where people get it wrong is that's all they do. So, I like to say, if you're sitting on your meditation pillow chanting Om, waiting for the universe to provide and never getting off, sometimes things happen that way, but usually we need to step into action and figuring out, like, okay, what do I need to do to make this happen? Maybe I need to figure out a savings plan to save more money. Maybe I need to actually start looking. Maybe I need to make sure my family's on board with this. Maybe I need to be open that I don't own the house on the beach, but maybe I get to house sit there. Maybe there's different ways of coming up with this goal. Maybe I just get an Airbnb one summer and make sure I really want it. I mean, part of the Australia thing for me is because in my mind, I think I might want to live there half the year so that I get summer all year long. Because it's not just the warm weather, it's a long day. So if I was in Australia from, I don't know, November to March and then back in Chicago, wouldn't that be cool? And I thought maybe I should visit first. So the speaking thing had it all happen kind of concurrently, and we'll see. we'll see if the Rogins are going to end up spending half the year in
There are really
Australia.
deadly animals there. So
That's what someone told me about the bugs, and we'll see. And they also drive on the other side of the road, which is freaking me out a little bit, but
it'll be cool. You'll meet
yes.
Crocodile Dundee. It'll be awesome. So I kind of think that is so in line with, that idea, when I was growing up, and it was, I pray to God, and it's like, yeah, but God answered you because he gave you arms that work and legs that work, right? Like he gave you a brain. You can pray to God for the support, but then go out and do it, right? Go out and make it happen.
Yeah.
So we kind of promised the good people that we were going to talk about visualization and like vision boarding and how to get there. So for a lot of people, that start of being able to think those big what ifs and figure out how to put them together into something that's really what they're really looking for in the moment. Because it's not forever, right? Vision boards are not for, I'm making a vision board today that's going to take me for the next 40 years. Vision boards are where we sit in the moment, right?
Yeah, because first of all, some things are going to happen for you, and other things you're going to realize aren't all that important as you go along. You change, your goals change. Yeah.
So how do you start?
Yeah, so I can speak from what I kind of teach on this, and then it may be fun as Gina and I are talking about this for you all to think of some small goal you have, and I'll walk you through a visioning process. So it doesn't have to be the house on the beach. It could be. It could be, I've got this client I really love to have hire me. This, one specific situation. So you guys be thinking about that as I'm talking about a vision board. And we call them prosperity pictures. So I'm going to share a little bit about how I look at it a little bit differently. In general, a vision board is a visual representation of some of the goals that you have. And typically when people used to get a lot of magazines, they'd cut things out. Now they might look for images online. And I'm looking, and I don't have a blank board here, but I'll show you guys mine. The idea is that you take images that represent different things. So this is my prosperity picture. Just want to make sure you guys can see that. The way the board is divided is on the left side. So this side are things you want to have happen sooner. There's Australia and New Zealand. The right side are things you want to have happen later. So 5 years or more. The bottom are for images that don't require any money. And the top part are for things that require money. So the upper right quadrant are for goals for down the road. Right. So my old prosperity pictures used to have the airplane way up in that corner with the idea that wouldn't it be cool to take a year off and travel the world. And now that I'm in a different place in my career, I've moved it closer to now. And maybe it doesn't cost as much money because I'm speaking. And what if I got paid to do that? Right. I was talking to someone today who read our book, and she said when she created her prosperity picture and she looked at it, she cried because she realized so much of it was within her control and didn't even require money for the things she truly wanted in her life. And the idea is then you keep it somewhere where you can see it often to remind you of these things, to keep your goals in front of you. And my experience is not every single thing, but many things start showing up for me, not always exactly how I pictured them. So I'll give you like a beautiful, fun example. When our book, right before our book came out, on one of my original prosperity pictures, I had the New York Times logo because we wanted to be a New York Times bestseller as part of our goal. What I didn't realize or never even contemplate could happen is that we would get written up in the New York Times. And the Sunday before the book came out, the mutual fund section talked about our book. It was right next to Tony Robbins' book. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I always put on my boards in the bottom corner, this or something better, because, maybe there's something better out there for me. Australia, New Zealand. The thing about the timing is I've had that on my board for years. I would have, thought I would have loved this to happen, but things happen when they're supposed to happen. If that makes sense. It's not always our timing, it's divine timing or whatever you believe in. So is that helpful in terms of how to think
I love
about your
that.
boards?
Actually, Rachel, so Lisa, hi Lisa, she's my organizer girl. This is this is Organized with Lisa. She is so good at creating a calm, clean, organized environment for people, which is the start of everything. And Rachel, oh Rachel, Rachel helps everybody with essential oils, and she's Forward Family. She's awesome, but she does lots of vision boards, and she's never tried that technique of putting them together. So that's what we said at the beginning, right? People who know it and might learn something new, or people who just need to hear it again. Thanks for showing up, Rachel. I'm so happy you're here. And I love the idea that what you put out is what you're thinking, and then the universe shows you what's there. I kept hearing though was being able to say yes. Right?
Yeah.
Because you can put all this stuff out there, but if you're not willing to say yes when it starts showing up, it can't manifest for you, right?
Yeah, so it's open to receiving, and that's such an important point, Jean, because I think that for many of us, giving is the easy part. When I was talking about generosity before, of course, but are you open to receiving? And just at a practical level, like if you're not open to receiving and you're in business, it's hard, right? You're not going to charge enough. You're going to do too much shit for free. And that doesn't always serve people. Like some of us think like, oh, I'll just give them this. They can't afford it. We make up a story. It doesn't always work. People don't value what you're giving them as much all the time if they're not paying for it. Like there's a lot of value of appropriately charging for your things. And one of the easy ways for people to practice receiving, especially women, I think, is in receiving compliments. We're really good at pushing them away. Oh, like someone said, oh, I love that pink sweater you're wearing, Ellen. And then you could hear someone going, oh, this old thing, I found it on like the side of the road or something. I mean, like we diminish that.
It's already starting to pill. I was thinking I needed to throw it away. Yeah.
Right. Or it's the things we're thinking. I remember years ago, I was getting some video stuff done and I was having my makeup done. And the woman who was doing my makeup said, oh, your skin is so pretty. And I immediately said to myself, she tells that to everybody.
Right.
She tells that to everybody. I don't have pretty skin. Now, so what if she tells it to everyone? And maybe she does or doesn't. It was still like lovely for her to say that. Could I have said and believed, thank you. Just taking it in. Thank you.
I hear that all the time when I'm taking pictures of people, because I'll be talking to them and I actually have to be really honest when I'm talking to people, and they will always say, you say that to everybody you work with. And I'm like, I actually don't, but it's true about you. Like what?
And here's the thing. When someone says that to you, Jean, in some ways, it's like they're dissing your compliment. Like you're giving a gift and they're like how does it, if you think of it that way, it's kind of awful to the person who's giving you this, yeah, if it's bullshit, then fine. But if it's like really a sincere compliment, that's an awful thing to do, is to go, yeah, but, or throw it right back.
Right.
Love your pink sweater, Ellen. Oh, but look at your shoes. Those are amazing. Thank you. Could be thank you.
So Debbie caught something that I caught too, and I was going to come back to it. Undercharging is a pandemic in social work. I think undercharging is a pandemic because of what you just said, which is a lot of people think I'm not worth it, or I'm not there yet, or I haven't. And a lot of that is in the visualization, right? We don't start a business thinking I'm going to do the most possible for the minimum payback, right? We always think, ooh, I'm going to end up being filthy rich and I'm going to have the life I dream. And then we say, but I'm only worth $10 an hour, right?
Yeah.
So how do you create that? Let's kind of go there. I mean, we're stepping a little bit to the left of where we were going, but I think that's for everybody here. We're all business people. So how do you kind of visualize that reality that you are good enough to be paid enough.
Yeah. Okay. I will get there, I promise.
Okay.
Put that for a second. I
Okay.
just want to, if this is okay, Jean, to just point out something you just
It's
said.
always okay.
I want to be filthy rich. So why would we use the word filthy in front
Filthy.
of rich? And we do this all the time, right?
It is true.
I remember there's a big house across the street from us. And when this couple moved in, I was like, oh, they're really wealthy, but they're really nice. Like, why would those be mutually exclusive? And I caught myself like, isn't that interesting? Because when we say things like that or have beliefs about really wealthy people, and if you filthy, like, why would you ever want that? And so that in and of itself keeps things away from us.
But that's really interesting because when I was growing up, right, that was the conversation, right? Is you had to give your wealth away. To be a valuable person, you had to give your wealth away.
Yeah.
Because you weren't getting into heaven with your wealth, and you weren't like, it was all that pieces, parts of it. And the people who had a lot of money, well, they were the evil people.
Yeah,
right?
they must be evil. They must be, Scrooge McScrooge kind of people.
Right.
Scrooge McDuck, whatever that is. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that book, Rachel. I am mad.
Rachel knows the most amazing books.
So this undercharging thing, a couple people that I've done messages for money consultations with, this has been their thing. And they'll say, they'll make up big stories. Look, I just want to help so many people. And I'm afraid if my prices are too high. And one of the women that I worked with, and she shared this story, so I'm not breaking confidentiality. Her name's Tracy. She's an amazing social media consultant expert. And she's like, yeah, like, I just don't want to charge. I want to be there. And like, Trace, people are not going to value your work if they don't pay for it. And if they pay appropriately, they'll actually do what you're telling them to do. If you barely charge them, they'll take it and not take action on it. And it just shifted things since then. She said there's a line outside her door for people wanting to hire her. And she's making more money than she ever has. And it's just a shift with that. That is it is a pandemic I couldn't agree more. And it's this appropriate amount that we feel good. So it's really two parts. It's making up the story what someone else can afford, but then it's also making up the story what you're worth. Right.
And it is such an interesting concept. And look, I do it too. I struggle with it all the time. When I decided to leave corporate America and do what I trained for, to do the photography thing, it was the best advice I was given, and I struggled to take it. Another photographer who had been in business for a while said, when you hang out your shingle, you are a photographer and you charge what you're worth because you can't recoup it. The people that the base that you're building, those are the people that are going to refer you to other people. Those are the people you're going to attract. And you better be charging like you're worth it. Otherwise, don't do it. Be worth it and do it. And it is a struggle because I think we do hear, and look, there are lots of women on this call, but for the guys that are listening, I know you guys get it too, but I think women especially get that sort of, well, it's a hobby, or, well, she'll do it for a while, or, well, she does it sort of okay. Like, and we absorb that too. We hear that too, right? So we're back to those messages in our subconscious that make us think we're not worth being compensated for what we do.
And the other side is there is this, then there's been studies how if things are more expensive, people think they're better. Right. These are not the right statistics on this, but it was something where they were testing wines, and there was 3 different wines and they had 3 different prices. There was like the really inexpensive one, the medium one, and the most expensive one. And people picked the most expensive one as the best wine. They were 3 identical wines.
Yep.
And so there's this way we perceive when things are more expensive that they must be quality and better. And we know we've all had experiences where that's not true, and you don't want to be gouging people. But there is something to be paying, charging what's appropriate for the work that you're doing, for sure.
And you set people up, right? Because what you're putting out there is you're saying, I'm worth it. I believe in myself. And I believe what I do is worth it. And I'm not going to accept you not thinking the same way.
Yeah. And to be thinking and to have the value conversation with yourself, like what kind of value you're really adding for people. You know, if I'm helping financial advisors be better in their practice and I'm charging a certain amount to teach them that, like how much is that worth to them? Like the investment is nothing compared to the potential returns. For you to give somebody an amazing photograph or headshot that's really representing them, like that's an important branding piece. That's an important positioning piece. Like that's huge. Why would you want the cheapest photographer? So you look crappy on your website and on your LinkedIn profile? Like that makes absolutely no sense. Now, do you have to be like the most expensive? No, unless, you know, that's who you are and who you want to work with. But
being able to charge what you're worth is important. I think that goes back to the visualization conversation too, because one of the things we've been talking about is how difficult it is to sit inside that. That's a really interesting what you can visualize if you're visualizing that conversation with a client. And I've had to do it. Like I've been in situations where I've got clients that I know are going to push back just because they push back. And being able to have that conversation ahead of time and visualizing it going the way I want it to go.
Perfect.
Is so important because I have verbiage ready because I saw it happen. Right?
All the way through to the result you want. They're like, okay, great. Or when do we get started? Giddy up. You know, whatever it is. Or if it's not a fit, thank goodness.
Right.
I wasn't meant to work with them anyway. It would have been such a problem. This is fine. It didn't work out.
Yeah. And that visualization helps you get there too, right? Because if you have visualized the perfect conversation, if you visualized how you want it to go and how you want it to end and what it's going to look like, and you are in the heat of that conversation and it doesn't look like that at all, then it's probably not the right person.
Yeah. Should we play with doing a visualization with everyone?
Yes. I think it's great.
Good.
Is there somebody watching that wants to play with you though? That would be awesome.
Well, let's do it with everyone. Everyone can do it.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
I'll walk you guys through this. So think of a goal you want to have happen in the next, let's say 4 weeks. Okay. So something that you want to have happen. And I'll walk you through this, but I'm going to ask you to give it a setting if it doesn't have one. And we're going to do a visualization where you're picturing it as if it's happening in real time. Okay. So find yourself seated in a way that you can feel relaxed and alert at the same time. So not like all slunched over and not like so straight that it's uncomfortable. And let's start with, you can do this with your eyes open, looking down gently with a soft gaze, or your eyes closed, whichever feels most comfortable for you. And let's start with taking in a few long, slow, deep breaths. So you get yourself right here, right now. Noticing an inhale and a longer, slow exhale. Breathing in and breathing out. And now I'd like you to bring to mind this goal that you have as if it's playing out right now. And if it doesn't have a setting, give it one, like a movie set. And this is a movie where you're in the movie and you're also directing it at the same time. So you're seeing what's happening. And notice where you are. What do you see around you? Yeah. Are there sounds that you hear? Are there aromas in the air? Are there other people there with you? If so, who's there? And what are you saying to them, and what are they saying to you? Now, as this is playing out, notice how you're feeling. and actually feel that feeling, whether it's excitement or joy, peace, love, whatever it is for you. And notice that feeling and feel it in your body. If it makes sense and you can, put your hand over where you feel that emotion. Add any other details you want to your vision. And before we leave this vision, you might just want to think about what your first next step is to turn this into a reality. One little step you can take. When you're ready, you can gently open your eyes and bring your attention back here. So, a couple stories when I've walked people through those visionings. I've had people find new jobs. I've had people find the perfect wedding dress, close deals. Maybe this is a visualization you do on a regular basis. I will tell you, I just got a really great idea for something, my first next step for something I'm working on, because I was doing it for me along with you guys. Yeah. So if you have any comments on how that was, or Jean, if you want to share anything about how that felt for you.
I think the interesting thing for me is how easy it was when you put your mind to it to really feel it. Like to really, when you're really open to the idea that it can be there, you really can sense what's going on around you. You really can feel what's happening around you. And it does, you can generate all those feelings. In sitting here, I could generate all those feelings about what would happen 4 weeks from now. And it does make you want to start. It makes you want to do and move more to make that happen.
And that feeling part is really kind of like the juice, the kicker behind this. And I encourage you. I mean, I do every day every morning after I meditate, I have some visualization. Like I have a presentation at the end of the month for a big financial services company, and I've been envisioning how well that's going to go and people's response. When I was speaking in public, I'd always picture people giving me a standing ovation at the end, right? Like, what is that ultimate thing that you want? Someone signing a contract, sending you payment for it, whatever that is, and then a beautiful relationship from there. And I'm really glad, Jean, that you also brought up, even before short conversations, this is a little seconds worth of visualization. How do I want this to play out? What's my intention? What might their intention be? How can we make this for the highest good of all, so that it's not just what are you going to get, but what are they going to get? It's really powerful and easy.
I'm really interested in the people that are watching, if they did it, and what they felt, because I think sometimes we can end up tripping ourselves. We're really good at tripping ourselves, right? So it's like, this is ridiculous. Why am I doing this? Or this is never going to work. I don't even need to try. Like those kind of things start coming up because it's easier to put the roadblocks in than to succeed. Do you ever have people it's so much easier to stop yourself from the success than it is to deal with the success, which is crazy, but seems to be so true.
Yeah, that is true for a lot of people. It's so funny. It never occurred to me that people would be like, this doesn't make sense. I'm sure you're right. Yeah, and I think there is, for some people, it's more scary, the thought of being super successful than kind of languishing. And that's just another thing for you to go, oh, isn't that interesting? I wonder what would happen if I didn't feel that way. I wonder if that's something I can decide to release. Yeah. It's easier to put. Agreed, Rachel. It is what Jean said. But if that's how, and it doesn't have to be hard to not do that.
There's inertia around the roadblocks, right? Inertia is hard to move from. So and And again, my upbringing was very interesting, and there was just a lot of, what are you going to do next? That's not good enough. You know, and so I think those messages run through too, and I hear it from so many people. You know, I'm not going to be good enough to do it. I'm not going to be strong enough. I'm not going to be smart enough. I'm not going to have the willpower. I'm not going to have whatever. Like it's that amazing limiting beliefs that keep us from the what ifs, right?
So I want to give you a very easy way to clear some of those. Might not work for like the deepest, most ingrained thing, but it might. One of the things that I do, and we've taught our kids to do, and my husband does, and anyone who's heard me speaks heard me say this, is when you notice, and this is a big part of the awareness piece, is noticing like, oh, I'm saying I can't do that, or it's too hard, or I have this feeling of going against the current, to say to yourself, cancel that thought, clear it away, and replace it with something you'd prefer instead. Like, what if it could be that easy to get rid of a limiting belief? Cancel, clear. So, if ever our kids say something we don't want to have happen, or my husband and I do, we're like, cancel, clear. Like, don't even put that out there, that abracadabra thing. And then you can go into like, what would I prefer instead? Because the more you do that, then you're starting to pave those new neural pathways to starting to see that that's possible. Because you've built those ridges, the ones that were limiting. So we got to dig some new ridges towards the positive part.
I have to put this up here, Justine. I think so many women feel this way. I don't know how to be a good mom and grow my business to where it's naturally bursting. And if I can tell you, if you have not checked out Treat Me Sweet Cookies on Instagram or on Facebook, please do, because Justine makes the most tasty cookies, but they are works of art, every one of them. And Justine deserves to be outrageously successful. And she also happens to be an amazing mom. But that's her. That's what she just said. So I know her reality and she can't see it. So what would you say to someone like that?
I'd have you looking, if this is okay, Justine, so I'm not getting your permission, but I'm going to assume it is, or you want to put it in the chat. I don't know how to be a good mom. It might be that you don't believe you can do both at the same time. And what if there was a different possibility? Like, what if you're so inspiring your kids by them seeing you being so successful? And the fact that you're concerned about this already shows you're a good mom. It's not like you're going to totally ignore your kids. Maybe in some ways they'll be better off, more resilient, more, I don't want to say better off, but maybe more self-reliant if you were doing things a little bit differently. I know when our kids were little, I was one of my few friends I grew up with that was a working mom, working outside the home. I want to be clear on that. They were working, but, employed or had my own business outside of the home. And at one point, our daughter, Amy, was, who was really independent, but was at preschool, really like clingy and crying. And it was so not her MO. And I was feeling so incredibly guilty. And I talked to one of my friends who was probably still the most indulgent mother, like always there for her kids, always. And she goes, oh my God, my daughter was in second grade and she was still doing that. And I was like, interesting. So here she is, stay at home with her kids' mom, so indulgent, always there for them. And her kids were having those issues. It was just total normal. And the second that I stopped feeling guilty, Amy stopped crying in preschool. It was that immediate. I was like, okay, well, I'll get through this. And she just stopped because it was my energy that was out there, I think, stirring the pot because I was feeling bad. And it's not impossible to do both. I think our kids are good, upstanding citizens. And I was a full-time traveling sometimes mom. And granted, we were lucky. We had care and stuff, but it is possible. And I bet, Justine, you can find other examples of that. So, yeah.
It was really interesting. A couple of years ago, I was really focused and I was trying to get everything done. And I was really, all this stuff. And one night I had just had enough. And so I put on music and I was in the kitchen. I decided to bake cookies. So I was baking cookies and I was in the kitchen singing at the top of my lungs. And my kid came into the kitchen, put his arms around me and said, "Mom, I love seeing you so happy."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, right. So it was really such an eye opener that wasn't about anything I was doing for my child. And I love my kid. My kid is way too spoiled for words, but it wasn't about any of that. It was about seeing the possibility of being happy.
Yeah.
Whatever that happy looked like, being happy was what really was the best thing for my kid. My kid saw me happy. And my kid to this day tells everybody my mom's the best photographer I know. I used to take my kid with me on my photo shoots. And when I was working with families, doing family events and stuff, and because I had to, and my kid, it was motivational. So you're right. It's when you stop thinking about why it's, when you stop putting those limits in, when you stop telling yourself what's wrong about what you're doing, and you look at what's good about what you're doing and what good it's doing for other people, it does change the conversation.
Yeah. And one of the things I was looking for this that I think is helpful. This is my easy button. But really, when you think like, oh my God, it's so hard, how am I going to get all this done? Or what if I can't be a good mom and do that? Like, what if it was easy?
That was easy.
You know, what if it could be easier? And you just sit with that. What if it could be that easy? And Justine, you know, I see this all like working so beautifully, like your business really growing to the point where you want it to be, and you're really serving the people that buy them, and your kids being super excited and it all being awesome for them. I don't see it as a mutually exclusive thing at all.
Ever.
It's up to
I love
you,
what
though.
Rob
It's up
said.
to you.
I don't know if you see this, but early 20s, older man respected tremendously, said you can have it all. And now his life is what he dreamed, right? It's what you believe.
Yeah.
It's
And having, and I would say, and having tools like a friend of Mary's and mine, Kelly, is a financial advisor, and she's got a severely disabled kid. Like, as much as of all the moms here and dads think their life is like 24-hour care disabled kid, and she runs a business. And with some mindfulness tools, and she does visualization before every meeting and takes 3 breaths to get really present. Within a matter of a year, her whole business exploded. It's almost twice as big. And she's just feels so much more present and able to handle the stuff that comes up with her kid. So sometimes it's also just having a little bit different skill set to help in this process.
And reaching out for help, right? Like, and being open. So you can be open to the universe creating these things in front of you that you're actively working to create. But you can be open to that. But then you also have to be open to the idea that you don't walk through the world alone, right? So visualize, while you're visualizing the what ifs, you can visualize, what if there were people to help me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Good. Perfect.
I think this is such an awesome conversation. Guys, do you have any questions out there? Because I know we're like running right at the, like, we've been talking for a while, but are there any questions out there from you guys? Because Ellen, this was so, so great.
It's fun for me. It's my favorite kinds of conversations. Thank you.
You have so many wonderful ideas. I do want to make sure that everybody knows that they can go to ellenrogin.com and learn more about you, about what you do, about your books, about, you know, your speaking engagements. Can we see the TEDx talk?
Yeah.
There's a link for that too there, right?
If you go to if you just go to YouTube and do Ellen Rogin TEDx talk, you'll find it. It's about kids and money. And Rob, I'll get to you in a sec for best book recommendation. And if you go to ellenrogin.com/gift, you can download my first book.
I did. It's really good, guys.
Great with Money, which I should have had easier access. Great with Money. And that's free. And so you could download that and then get messages from Money, which are weekly messages. I kind of download messages that I think money wants you to hear. So it's like having money show up in your email box every week, kind of fun. Best book recommendation, like best book, that's tricky. Oh my God, there's so many that have been so impactful for me, but the one that's coming up is an old book that got me started in this process called The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol, I think. I think it was written at the 20s or 40s or something, but it was really the first thing that had me playing with these thoughts of how you can visualize and picture things that you want. So I don't know if it's the best book, but it's the book that came to mind when you asked the question.
I know that we said it was an hour. We're running over the hour. So give us a little bit of a grace period here, guys. And Ellen, thanks for hanging in. But I do want to get to this really amazing and interesting thing that you do. I'm going to preface this by saying most of what I do when I have people in front of my camera is intuition. Yeah, I know the settings on the camera. I know how to set the lights. I know all of that piece like the back of my hand. But what really makes my business what it is that I wait till the person shows up in front of me, right? So it's about the feeling. It's about when that spirit shows up so that I know I'm really getting images of the person, the real person that's in front of me. And when we were talking, you were talking about a piece of your practice, which is very intuition driven, which I thought was really, really interesting. Can you like kind of give people a little background into that?
Yeah. So, I was a very traditional financial advisor. I'm a CFP and a CPA. And I always would say to people, like, I just know if someone's going to be on track for their financial goals without them even having to tell me about their money. And I thought it was because I learned to listen in a different way, which it probably was. But about 3 or 4 years ago, I had an experience where I was doing this kind of growth. I was at this workshop and working with this guy, and we were supposed to kind of tap into our intuition. And all of a sudden, words came out of my mouth that was as if I was speaking for money. That was the topic, was money. And I knew it wasn't me because this was someone I didn't know well. Am I allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, go ahead.
I already said shit a couple times. This is the F word. But so I would never say this to somebody. I would say it, but not to somebody I really didn't know, and not in this way. And this guy was like a healer kind of person. And what came out of my mouth was, fuck you for thinking that you can't make me and do good work in the world. And I don't even want to be around you. Like, I was speaking what money wanted to say to this guy. And he stopped me and he goes, Ellen, oh my God. And he pulled out from his necklace, from under his neck. It was someone had given him the patron saint of poverty, like this medallion thing. He took it off. And all of a sudden I stood next to him and I go, now I want to be with you. And I was like, what just happened? Because it was not my words. And normally, now I'll tell you what I do now in a second, but it's always really positive information. 3 years later, I connected with this guy again. I hadn't seen him. And he said, Ellen, ever since we did that, my whole business has changed. Like, all of a sudden, like, business is great and money's coming in. And what I think happened is money was talking to me and this guy, James, in a way to get both of our attentions. And so what I've started to do is really tap into that intuition. And I do intuitive money readings for people. So someone will tell me what their questions are, and I journal with money before our meeting and share with them messages from money. And then we have conversations about it. And honestly, from my traditional background, this is feeling a little weird to talk about it this way because I'm having to kind of shed my CFP identity a little bit because I've always felt like I had to be a certain way. But yeah, this is what the reality is that we have. For me, is that I can tap into that intuition. I can live in both worlds, being kind of really traditional, but also knowing there's stuff that we can't always see and messages out there for us to hear that aren't always easy for us to hear on our own.
I think that's absolutely fascinating. So you just never know what's waiting for you. But I think this whole hour has been about possibility. This whole hour has been about creating, recognizing possibility, your possibility, the possibility of the people around you, how to create a world where everyone's going with the flow, right? right? Because
For sure.
where would we be in a world where everybody was happy? And happy is that strange word, right? Everybody's happiness is different. There are people in my life that are insanely happy being miserable. So happy is an interesting word, but if everybody felt like they didn't have to fight the current, I do love that as an analogy, right? Like if everybody really felt like they weren't swimming upstream all the time,
and they could be more generous and more supportive of what was going on and less jealous and less competitive. Yes, what would be possible? Yeah, I agree.
And I think if we like could see people raising their hands and we asked the people that were watching, you know, when do you feel your best? Do you feel your best when you're supporting the people in your life or when you're knocking them down? And there's that moment, maybe there's a moment when you're being like that snarky little snotty person where you think, haha, but then it sours really quickly.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But when you're supporting someone, that glow lasts for a long time.
And I would say the same with blame. Like arguably there's crappy stuff that happens to people sometimes. My experience is when I sit in blame, even if it may be justified, it doesn't ever make me feel better. It's not a way to move me ahead by focusing the attention on how I've been wronged or how difficult somebody else is. It doesn't make it better. And that's what you're saying, just in another context. Agreed.
I have to say, probably one of the most powerful things, and you said some really powerful things today, but one of the most powerful things was when we were talking about visualization, and you said, and then visualize what the first step is to make it happen. Do we talk a lot when you talk about visualization about visualize that amazing world, but you have to visualize taking a step. That's really powerful. So just thank you so much for giving us this time. I hope you had a great time. I know the people watching and the people that are going to watch on the replay, and there are tons of them. They're my pajama and wine crew. Sometimes they'll even put it in the comments. I got my wine now, I'm watching. But I just know how much this is going to mean to the people who see this. So thank you so much for today.
Oh, it's my honor. And thank you. And thank you, Mary, for introducing us. And it's always a fun kind of conversation. I'm really honored to have been here with you all in your community, Jean.
I'm so looking forward to finishing the first book, getting the second book. Rob's already ordered your book. I think probably everybody here is going to be ordering that book. And I signed up for the money messages. Y'all need to go on her website and sign up for the money messages. I can't wait to see what message I get tomorrow. Because that's pretty awesome. Everybody, thank you so much for coming and listening. If you've been a part of the conversations before, you know I always say this. To the people that were watching live, I love that you were here. Thank you for participating. I hope you got something amazing out of it. And to the people that are watching on the replay, I love you too. So everybody, have a really great week. We will be back next Tuesday with another great conversation. I don't know who's coming in next, but they're really going to have to deal with this. And I have to say this. When we were talking about what are you going to do next, like visualize that first step, that was last week's conversation. It was about building strong habits. So go back and listen to the conversation with Rachel from last week, because that's out on Jean Terman Photography on Facebook, or it's on the JTP Images on YouTube. Either one, watch that, because that's a really great way to start actually implementing the things you want to do once you've visualized your what ifs. So again, Ellen, you're amazing. Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye, Thank you.
In the comments, let us know what you think, and we'll see you later.